This video is in two parts, part one and part two. Part one goes something like this. A, these are my opinions, not yours. It's all right that we disagree. That's fine. We don't all have to think the same. B, just because we disagree doesn't mean you have to like or hate someone. You don't have to hate someone you disagree with. You can just disagree with them. And perhaps C, we can all agree that watching ordinary people suffer is never good. Seeing women or elderly people or babies or people crying thrust into cellars in Ukraine, for example, that's never good. It's never okay when ordinary people like us are made to suffer because of the actions of the powerful. So we can agree those three things, A, B, and C. Great. Here's part two. And my thoughts on Ukraine. There's something very strange going on, isn't there? Timing-wise, COVID finished and the very next day there's a war on and it's focusing your attention anew. Before you were worried about COVID and whether to get the vaccine and what was going to happen and were we all going to die. And now you can talk about the war and are we all going to die? A new big theme, again with a baddie, Putin, and a goodie, Zelensky and Ukraine. People can action something, can't they? Just as with COVID, people changed their icon to clapping for the NHS. Now you can change your icon again, can't you? You can update it to Ukraine's flag or maybe some image of Zelensky or I stand with Ukraine. During COVID, people were encouraged, weren't they, to get involved in the conversation, made to feel things about COVID. We had Kate Garraway's husband endlessly dying and we all felt sorry for Kate and she did documentaries, which she's still doing. And now we can feel really sorry and emotionally engaged with the women and children who are being made to suffer by this concocted war. It's a horrible thing. Everyone's emotionally engaged. And just like with COVID, everybody now wants a hero. In COVID times, it was Captain Tom walking up and down in his garden, bringing with him all that sense of nostalgia with his medals and fighting for his country. And wasn't it a beautiful patriotic thing? And it was. And now you have Zelensky put into power by the American regime in 2014, an actor nonetheless, brilliant at learning lines and delivering a script. And look what he just delivered into Parliament, a script of Shakespeare, of Churchill. We will fight them on the beaches and in the streets and in the wherever lands. How on earth did he have time to learn that script and, as he says, be the number one target for assassination and be the number one target for Putin, and he may not live much longer? Although there's lots that doesn't add up, just like with COVID, isn't there? When deaths were of or from or by or with, or that never really added up. And then in Ukraine, there were the images of the 12 Ukrainians being obliterated on Snake Island, although that's turned out not to be true. They're actually prisoners now, and that conversation you saw never happened. Like the ghost of Ukraine, the fighter pilot who was supposed to have brought down all those jets, that never happened either. And with COVID, you had lockdowns to stop you flying or going anywhere or driving anywhere or being part of anything to get you cut off from the system. And now with Ukraine, gas prices are going to go through the roof, so you won't be able to put fuel in your car, and there's going to be food shortages, almost like a contrived depression to stop you from going anywhere. I mean, if you were a conspiracy theorist, you might say that the Great Reset was underway. You might say that COVID was the precursor to a war, which then made the new ambition not to be COVID-free, but to be carbon-free, because there'll be no oil or gas for anyone. You can get rid of the petrol stations. No one will drive anywhere, and eventually you will own nothing and be happy. I mean, you could say those things if you were a conspiracy theorist. It'd be far easier just to cheer on Zelensky, listen to that powerful talk, change your icon to the Ukraine flag and continue with the racism against Russian people, where Russians are now being targeted in the street, forced out of their jobs, told they can't earn a living. And you want to talk about changing Kiev to Kyiv, because that will really make a difference. There's a lot of big thoughts in there. Remember, part 1.